Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. This show is brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl.
As a member, I'll provide you a roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. We can help you to turn your flock of hybrid crosses or mongrels into a pure family or strain, and show you how to continually improve that strain each generation. We'll start by showing you how to select your seed fowl and how to turn that seed fowl into a high-quality foundation strain. Our proven breeding programs and specialty courses are designed to take you step by step through the breeding process. And best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders' Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl. Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with my wife, Nancy. What's up?
Yahoo! You caught me. I was in the chat room. I'm sitting here doing this down here. Okay, this is what's up, guys. Okay, so before the show goes on, I'm like, Kenny goes, are you ready? Okay, so it's just gonna be you and me today. Frank's not feeling good. I think Frank got the same junk that I had a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that takes a good 2 weeks to get over. It's not fun. But anyway, so he's on the mend, and Kenny goes, okay, it's just gonna be you and me tonight. All right, so we got this. And I'm like, yeah, we got this. And he goes, and I said, we got to make this, he goes, we got to make this conversational, it can't be all me. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And he goes, if you need anything, if you remember anything that you want to say, you just write it down on your pad of paper. And okay, I'm going to show you my pad of paper looks like this. All right. It's not that big. I got my handy dandy bling pen. And he goes, yeah, I got my paper too. And show them your paper.
Well, I'm anticipating a lot of notes I'm going to have to take of her. See, it's a nice long piece. It's bigger than hers.
A legal pad. This guy is using a legal pad. So, oh my God.
Yeah, because I told her exactly what she said. I go, I'm just not what I like about Frank is, well, we get along so well, and you guys know we're
So,
really good friends, and we work really well together, and we were able to really make it conversational. And while he's talking, I'm thinking, and then while I'm talking, he's thinking, and so it takes a little of the load off of me, you know. And I told Nancy, I just not, it's a hot day. I'm kind of like drained, and I'm like, I'm not really in the mood to be all on me today. Let's make it conversational as much as possible. And I think it would be funner that way. And she goes, well, you got to let me in. And I go, well, you got to be ready. You got to know when your time is to be in, you know? And she goes, okay, well, I'll write notes and everything. And I go, well, I'll write notes too, because I hope Nancy doesn't take this bad, but she'll say, I'm going to ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Okay. I asked the question, but here's what I really mean. I'm going to ask it a little further. And then I'm going to ask it one more time. And I'm going to go, oh, by the way, and this. And I told her, I go, by the time you went to and this, I just forgot everything you said. I don't even know how to answer the question at all. So that's why I got this, which I don't normally do. So,
oh, lordy, lordy, lordy.
but it's funny. It is warm. It's summer's definitely here. I got all the fans going. You can see it. You can see Nancy's hair blowing. What fan is blowing on you right now? Because I don't know of a fan that does that in there. That's doing it. Oh, okay.
The one above me is doing it. But check this out. So I, before we get started, I asked Roseanne, how you do in Oklahoma? I mean, it's like, are you staying above water? And let's see, I think I started. You won't believe what happened to this poor girl. Check this out. Got hit by predators and lost all my Breeze's hens.
Oh, wow.
That is so sad. So sad.
You know, what I can add to that, I don't know if that's what happened. This is why it's probably best to have multiple pens, because it's really tough for them to get them all that way. Not to keep them all in one pen all the time. Try to keep them spread out, and especially when you're doing a breeding season, you do want to have multiple pens. But when you're throwing a bunch of pens into one, or a bunch of hens into one pen, it's very easy to lose them all that way. So I don't know if that's what happened to her or not, but wow.
So basically, she has to start over with her family.
Well, unless she has baby chicks on the ground, which she should by now. This is a breeding season. We're just wrapping up breeding season, so summer's on the way. You should have all the chicks you need on the ground. I hope you hatched enough to carry your strain forward and do the selection that you need. Hope they're healthy, looking good, growing well. And this is like what happened to her, Roseanne, is this is a good time to keep them safe and cool. So, because, it's a bummer to hatch spend all this time setting up your brood pens, figuring out how you want to work the program and get your chicks on the ground, and then you lose them all to predators or heat or something like that. So this is a good time to, protect not only your brood fowl, but your baby chicks too.
It's like they always say, don't put all your hens in one basket, all your eggs in one basket per se.
Yeah.
Spread them around a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to welcome all the new members. We got a lot of new members this last sale, and we're still, the neat thing is, even after the sale, we're still getting members, which is really cool. And what really makes me happy is a lot of them are upgrading to the annual plan. And so if you want to do that, you just go to the registration page, log into the website first, go to the registration page, and click the annual level, and then it'll walk you through it. It's really easy. It automatically, you sign up for it, automatically cancels the old membership and sets you up with the new one. So, but I really appreciate all the new members, and I'm really happy. Yeah,
we're happy all the time.
Yeah, well, I like to see the website keep going.
Yeah, it's doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing well, and I see a lot of people in there all the time, and yeah.
Yep. So this is still, like I said, this is still a good time to join. just go to www.breedersacademy.com. You'll get, once you join, you'll have instant access to the website. You'll have the founders program, the master's class videos, the members roundtable videos, programs, and courses. You're going to have the complete collection of audio and videos that we've done. You're going to get the daily articles, and you're going to get great material from contributors like Brian Reeder, Peter Brown, Dr. Gallardo. And matter of fact, I've been talking with, I'm chatting with Dr. Gallardo, and we're trying to work out a date where he'll come on and do some more episodes on diseases and healthcare and things like that. So,
It's really funny. We were talking about him the other day to my niece, who's actually going to the college where he is professoring in. And then all of a sudden, the next day, here we get a phone call from him. So that's really cool.
well, not a phone call, but we did get. I'm chatting back and forth with him on text. Yeah, but that is funny because she was going, "Yeah, I'm going to UC Davis." I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I work with one of the poultry veterinarians there, Dr. Gallardo. He comes on my show now and then, and we do poultry healthcare and diseases. And then, him and I started chatting. So I'm hoping to get him back on. I need to get Peter on too. So again, just go to www.breedersacademy.com to join. Okay, so get your questions in. I don't mind answering questions today. I do have a basic outline here. I've got a kind of a neat topic, but I don't mind answering your questions today. I do want it to be somewhat of a casual day, and we're only going to do an hour. We won't be doing the roundtable today. I like doing it when the roundtables are funner and better when Frank's here, when we're having a conversation. To me, that's more of a roundtable. It's just me doing the roundtable, and then Nancy asking questions or pulling up questions now and then. We can do that on the front end, So just members know not to ask things about the founders program on the front end, so we won't do that. But once Frank gets back, we'll get back to the roundtable.
So here, Crosby is saying we're talking about Oklahoma here. We've got 3 people in the chat room that are from Oklahoma, and they have been getting a ton of rain for the last 2 weeks, probably like the last month off and on. It's been terrible. And they've got a little bit of a dry spell the next couple of days, and then next week they're getting hit again. Because I also have a friend that lives in Oklahoma. So he says we're supposed to get another 6 to 7 of water next week. My pens still have not recovered from the last 7 inches that we got last week. What do you have any suggestions that you can give them at how to quickly, sop up that extra water in their pens?
Not really. The key is, and what I've learned here, because we get the same thing. Yeah, everybody thinks I live in paradise, but it's hot right now. And when it rains, it rains. And when we can have a week's of rain and it gets flooded out there. So I think the best approach is to prevent the water from getting in the pens in the first place. Really, that's the key. Once the rain's in there, once the water's in there, there's not a whole lot you can do, other than trying to keep the birds out of the water as much or above the water as much as possible, So try, if you have brood pens with roofs, enclosed brood pens, chicken pens, try to keep the leaks, make sure there's no leaks, try to keep it dry as possible. For most of us, that's usually not the issue. We have outdoor pens, like I have a lot of I want to say they're dog runs. They're chain link dog runs, I've got 10 by 10s, I've got 6 by 6s, 6 by 12s. And the key is just keep the rain out in the first place. Put a proper roof on it.
It's got to be a slanted roof.
Yeah, but slant it away from the pen so it's not coming into the pen, that kind of thing. I find that putting bricks, laying some blocks around, putting the pens on top of those, so that it not only keeps the water out, but also keeps the predators out, that kind of thing. Yeah, keep good roofs, key. Round pens or square pens or pens similar to those. You may have to move them, to drier or areas where it's not as flooded. Good person asked is Frank. Now, Frank likes to put hay down or straw, and that works for him. But I've tried that, and it doesn't work for me because what happens is it gets down into the litter. It gets packed down, and then when it dries, it's like hard as cement, and it's hard to get out. So that's my experience with straw. Frank's never said he's had that problem, but I have. So I don't use straw here. Um, but I do go in there if water gets in there, and I'll scoop out all the, because a lot of the feces or droppings, it all kind of rises at the top when it gets flooded in there, and then when it gets to a point where it's just mushy or whatever, and not so flooded with water, then I'll go with a flat shovel and just pull that out and put it in a wheelbarrow, and then I'll go in there and spread some lime in there, and yeah, that's what I do. So dry horse pellets and pine shavings over the top, yeah, that can help. But it depends. If it's really flooded, it can almost, it'll absorb some of it, but well, you just have to, I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
We even thought at one point that if you had leaves from your trees, put the leaves in there and that would like maybe absorb some of that moisture, but that didn't work out all that well either.
Yeah. Yeah, like the stuff that gathers under the trees put in there.
Yeah.
It just made it worse. I can put that inside the brood pens, and that works good in there. And then it just kind of decomposes, and it's like a deep litter system. And then every so often I put a little more in there, and when it just decomposes to the dirt, I put a little more, and it gets to a certain height, and then I take some out, put it in a compost pile, mix it all in, that kind of thing. There was a time when I was I don't have the horses around me like I used to, but the horse owners around me would throw their horse manure over the fence, and then I would take that and put it in the pens too. And it worked fine for the brood pens, the ones that are covered or enclosed. But again, the dog runs, when the water was really collecting in there, oh, that was just a mess. That was really bad. So I don't do that on those pens anymore. Yeah, it just makes it a bigger mess than it was before. So anything else?
Yeah, Kenny, I got a question for you. What are some of the signs that tell you that you are not making progress with your breeding program?
Well, the biggest ones I'd say are offspring that are not better than the parents. That's your first indicator. If the offspring are not better than the parents, then you're not moving in the right direction. We always say that. If they're just the same, you're just kind of staying where you're at, and if they're worse, you're definitely going in the wrong direction. So you've got to, we always say that the offspring tell you what you need to know about the parents, tells you what you need to know about the past, the present, and where you're probably going to go in the future by what they express. Frank says it tells on the parents. Well, it does. And so we can learn a lot about how we're doing, if we're going in the right direction, how much progress we're making by the way what the traits are, the chicks are expressing, how healthy they are, and things like that. So that's the first key. And then you just got to see improvement. That's the biggest part of it, is you got to see improvement each generation. And if you're not, you're going in the wrong direction. So those are the first signs. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so those are the first signs. You breed them back to the parents because you need to get something better than that first generation. And what if it's still not better? What do you do?
Well, the Founders program, and I know some of you guys are going, oh, there's the Founders program, but it really is a great program for this problem. The way the first few stages are set up is for that particular reason. Let's say you're not getting the offspring that you need, and you feel that the parents, the brood fowl, have all the qualities you're looking for. They represent what you're trying to do. They represent their breed. They have all the traits that you're looking for, but they're just not producing great offspring. And so the Founders program, I mean, there's only two things you can do, is go and get different brood fowl, or mate the best one to a different bird, or you follow the Founders program. And like I said, the first few stages are acquiring the brood fowl, and then it's a cleanup process for getting the strain ready for to go into the foundation stage. And so that's really important. So I always tell people that's your two choices, that you either get different brood fowl or you work through the process. And that's why it's set up the way it is, so that you can get a little more from the parents by doing certain methods. You can clean them up as you go. The last thing you want to do is go into, let's say, any kind of a inbreeding or line breeding, anytime you're bringing them closer and closer with birds that have a lot of faults, that have issues. They're not better than the parents, because you're just going to go in the wrong direction, you know. So it's hard to talk about that without talking about the founders program. But that's all I can really tell you, is you either start with different birds, because you're just not going to get there unless you clean them up, or use a process like the founders program to clean them up, so that you're getting them in a better, the quality is a little better when you go into the foundation stage. But the key too is look. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about a second ago, is when you get the offspring, understand that, especially in the beginning, is not all the offspring are going to be great. You got to find the few that are to move forward with, because a lot of times the brood fowl we're working with in the beginning, our Adam and Eve, are either crosses, mongrels, hybrids. They have a lot of genetic diversity. Most of the time, they're not related. So we're going to see that coming through in the offspring. A lot of unpredictability, a lot of contrasting characteristics, a lot of defects, a lot of disease, things like that. And we've got to hatch enough chicks in the beginning to have a really good selection. And the idea is to weed them all down, just plan on it, because a lot of people think, oh, I got all these chicks, this is all I got to breed to all of them, okay, because that's all I got. Well, you just shot yourself in the foot. So try to hatch as many chicks as you can, have a proper selection, and plan on weeding them down to the top 10%. It's a 10% rule of breeding. Get to the top 10% of your offspring, and then grow them up, because as you're going, you're going to start looking for weak, sick chicks. Get those out of there. You're going to start looking for defects too. Get those out of there. And as they present themselves or start expressing problems, you're getting those out of there. And if you can get yourself to a point when they're fairly getting close to maturity, at least like 8 months to a year, and you've weeded down to the top 10%, and you have a good number to select from, grow them out even more, and plan, and then look at them and look for the standouts. And a lot of times, depending on where you're at in your breeding program, all you need to move forward with, and I know it sounds weird, is one good cock and one good hen, because you don't want to breed to them all. You only want to breed to the standouts. And so a lot of times that's the case. Sometimes the best cock and hen from that entire breeding of those two birds that you started with, the Adam and Eve, they may not be perfect, but are they better than the parents? And if they're not, then there's some things we need to do to produce offspring from that will get some that are better than the parents. And a lot of times it could be 1 or 2 generations, and then you're off to the next stage. So, but yeah, get those defects. You never want to breed to defects. You're just going to accentuate it. You're going to perpetuate that defect. Defects are recessive. Breed 2 recessives, 2 copies of the recessive trait, and it's not the right trait. You're going to perpetuate it, and before you know it, that's why I go on farms and I see birds with defects, and they all have it, because they weren't watching for it. They weren't being careful about it. They didn't think it was a big deal, and they started multiplying them and they just kept breeding birds with those defects. So you got to find the ones that don't have the defect. And if anything, the last resort is, if you have to breed to the defect, you got to make sure that one of the birds doesn't have the defect, isn't expressing the defect, because then you will express it. All the offspring will carry it. But if one carries and one doesn't, then you can move forward. You just got to look at the offspring, the ones that express it in the following generations. You got to get those out of there and find the few that don't, and then keep moving forward. Defects are recessive. They never go away. They remain hidden, and they'll they always have the opportunity to surface under the right conditions, bred to the right birds who both maybe even don't express it, but both carry it. But you always have to be careful of that. But I've seen every defect there is in my birds. I have a list. It's like 88 defects, which are on the website. And we talk about all of them. They're illustrated and talks about, how to identify them, what they are, their genetic factors, and then how to fix it. And I've seen most of those defects in my birds. So I know they're there, but it's a pretty solid family. I've bred them close, never had outside blood. And as long as I don't to other birds that happen to carry it, I won't see those defects. I usually don't.
Well, does it ever happen where you get to, in your breeding process, you get to a year or a year and a half of the offspring and you've got nothing? Would it be best to have more than one brood pen going at a time? See what I'm saying?
Yeah. That happens, So, well, let's put it this way. Okay, so you're saying it's all about the numbers, because by the time they get to a year and a half, 2 years old, you should know whether you have birds. Those kind of things aren't going to change a lot between a year and 2 years old. What's going to change when they get to 2 years old is the overall type and conformation and size and weight, things like that. They could change there. But by the time they're a year old, you have a pretty good idea what you're dealing with. You have a pretty good idea. Nancy, what's that noise?
Oh, sorry.
You have a pretty good idea of what direction they're going to go, and they'll just change a little bit. But it's what's hard about that is when you don't know the parents, when you don't know these birds and you're still learning them. That's when the surprise is going to come. When you've been working with them for a while, it's the same family for years. You've got them through the foundation stage. You're not going to have those surprises. You pretty much know what you're going to get, and the amount of good birds over bad birds are going to be higher too at that point as well. But
yeah, but if you're just starting out, you're going to be going through those growing pains.
Well, okay, let me I think how I can answer your question. I just thought about it. So like I said, if you're hatching as many chicks as you can manage and afford, and really listen to what I said there, because it's not about for some people it's going to be different. Some people it's going to be 100. Some people it's going to be 500. It depends on your situation and whether you can afford it or not. So you have to determine what that means to you. Okay, so if I'm trying to get down to 10%, I'm not going to pick the standouts until I'm ready to breed them. And if my standouts turn out not to be what I thought they were, then I'm going to fall back on some of the others that were part of the 10%. That kind of thing. Does that answer your question? I think that's where you were going.
Yeah. And actually, that's what Joshua is dealing with. He's saying that's his concern, especially with the defects of the Americanas chickens that they pick up from the Americana when they were created.
Yeah. Well, they're getting better. That breed's getting better under the right care and the right breeders. They're even with all the genetic diversity they had in the beginning, which all breeds do when they start. I mean, when you're crossing birds and infusing birds and doing what we call it, gene shopping to create a strain or create a breed, you're going to be dealing with a lot of issues for a while. But if it's under the same breeder for many years, those issues are going to be ironed out. It's when it gets into someone else's hands and they think that they need to add new blood to always fix them, or add someone else's strain, or add a completely different breed to get the trait they think they're missing. Okay. And there's a way to do that too. But a lot of people, how did Brian say it? It's not the crossing that's the problem. It's the people who think they can improve them by crossing. He said it a little differently than that, but I think a lot of people have the wrong expectations when it comes to crossing and outcrossing and what they're going to get and what they're going to be able to do with that. They gotta understand the breed. They gotta understand the genetic factors of those breeds, of that breed. And when you're bringing in new blood, you got to understand the genetic factor of that breed too, and understand what that breed's going to do to your breed. Okay. Now we can gene shop. I don't really. Now, if you're trying to create a whole new breed that doesn't exist, then gene shopping is a great tool. And we have that. Okay. It's a great tool to use to create a new breed, but it takes time. It's not a quick fix. It takes many years. Probably one of the longest programs there is. We use the Founders Program, the Improvement Through Reduction Program, and then there's the gene shopping. I would say the gene shopping takes the longest. Okay. And if you don't understand the breeds you're using, and you don't understand the genetic factors that they carry and express, you're just going to tie yourself in a knot. You're never going to get there. But if you understand the genetic factors and you know how to match them up properly and know how to not only add them to the gene pool, but to hold on to the traits that you want to keep as you're doing it, that's the key. And you got to understand how to do that. I'm not sure. You might have to bring me back a little bit. I forgot what we were going with that.
Well, he's just talking about there's so much diversity going on in the Americanas because they started out with the Americanas.
Yeah, that's where I disagree a little bit, because I think they've been around long enough, and I know some breeders that breed them very well, and they breed true, and they're repeatable, and they're uniform, consistent, repeatable, predictable. It's always when they go into someone else's hands that someone adds other blood into them that didn't know what was in there, or trying to do something new that messes them up. And then those birds get into other people's hands. So that's the problem. So I always say, no matter what the breed is, try to find a really good breeder who specializes in that breed, and get birds from him and ask him what he does. And I guarantee if he knows what he's doing some inbreeding. Okay. And he's using something that's similar to the Founders Program.
Yeah, because his issue here, Joshua, is that he's asking in the chat room, does anybody know any breeders of black Americana chickens? He says, I found mixes, but it seems like everyone wants the blues and the self blues.
Well, that's crazy, because you can't breed blue true. That's the other problem.
Yeah.
So if you want to produce blues as something on the side, that's fine. But if you're trying to create a strain, improve a strain, or maintain a strain, you really need to move away from the blue, because the blue is only going to mess you up. It's an incomplete dominant trait. You can't breed them true. You're always going to get a mixture of genes or feather color. Okay. And a lot of times the only true homozygous color that's produced from blues is the splash. But it's not really blue. Okay. It's not the blue that you want. Let's put it that way. So if you're trying to breed that particular breed, or you're trying to keep and maintain or improve that particular breed, fine. You can produce blues on the side in a like a recumbent reciprocal selection type situation. So you would have to maintain, let's say, a white breed and a black breed, and you maintain those two. From there, you can produce blue. Black and white by itself don't produce the blue, but the problem is almost all the whites we have today have blue in them, and that's why you can get the blue. Okay, so and then you can produce blues and have fun with those, but then you don't breed them. Okay, you got to maintain the other two colors. You gotta weed out that blue.
You don't breed the blue to blue, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, you can, but don't expect that to breed true. No matter what you do, no matter how many times you breed blue to blue, you're not going to only get blue. Okay. So if you want to produce blues, then have that pen over there produce blue. Just know that you're not going to get them pure. They're not going to be consistent. You're going to get everything under the sun, and you'll get some blues, but that's where I have a problem with blue. I love blue, but my problem with blue is that they misunderstand the breeding. They misunderstand the genetics of it. And they're producing the wrong birds. And then even if they are or not, they're selling them to other people as blues. And then those people don't really understand what they're getting into. And then they don't understand why they're getting all these different colors. Just got to understand, blue is just one of those colors that does not breed true. I can get into all the genetics and everything. I try to stay clear of that here. That's all on the website. But
All right, so let me ask you this question, and it may be one that you can't answer, but can you? So if you have the black Americanas, but it has the blue trait in it, you know it has the blue trait in it. Can you selectively breed to where?
If it's pure black, black by itself, they should be fine. They could breed black to black, and they'll get the black. It's a dominant trait.
But what if it has some blue traits in it?
Then
What can you
it
do?
would probably show. It would show. They would see it.
Would it show in every black offspring, or would it
If
be
the
like
blue's there,
some
it's
are
going to
blue?
show. It's Nancy. If the blue's there, it's going to show.
But my question is it going to be, two blue, two black, or is it going to be the
It
whole
depends.
offspring?
Here's the other thing. That's a really hard thing to answer because I don't like giving definite answers on that kind of thing because it also depends what else is in there, and we don't always know what's in there. That's why you see so many variations. You see blues coming out with blue, but you see progressive white, you see brown coming through too. So they have, like he was saying, they have so much genetic diversity in them. They get a mess of things that come out. It's not all blue. Very seldom do you see all blue. So I hate getting into the conversation of blue and try to say, okay, if you have this and you breed to that, you get blue. I don't like to even go in there. You can see me fumbling around because a lot of times that's not what's happening. And I'll get people go, oh, that's not what happens. I get this, I get that, I get everything under the sun. And it's true. You do, just know that when you're dealing with blue, they're not going to breed true no matter what. You know what I mean? And if you can breed the blacks to the blacks and they produce blacks, then they're clean. They're homozygous for black. It's a dominant color. They don't have any recessives in there. If you breed the splash to splash, they're going to produce more splash. Okay, that kind of thing. And if you breed blue to blue, you're going to get a mixture of all of them. And if there's any other colors, they're going to show up too.
Now, this is what I was getting at, what Sue was saying. In her breed, she gets 25% blue, 25% splash, and 50% black.
Yeah.
Can Joshua take that black? He's getting a mixture of the others. Can he take that black and breed black to black, and then the blue gene becomes hidden? It's still in there, but it becomes hidden?
It's not in there. If both the parents are not expressing the black, they're most likely homozygous for the black, and they'll breed true. If they're showing any other colors, then they've got some recessives in there that are going to express themselves.
Okay, you said black, but what you meant to say was the blue. If they're not expressing any of the blue.
Yeah. If they're not expressing brown and blue and, that kind of thing. Progressive white, recessive white, whatever.
So
let me say this. This is why I really hesitate getting into the conversation of blue. It's a mess. The whole thing's a mess. It just is. If you're breeding blue, just expect a mess.
Well, I don't think he is trying to breed blue.
No, I'm not saying he is. I'm talking about all the other people out there that are trying to breed blue, and they are. When they come out right, they're beautiful, but it's so temporary,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Sue agrees with you. It's a mess.
It's a mess. I just hate getting in that conversation because it's hard to give them a good answer, a definite answer, or an answer that they can. I'm all about being practical, giving you information that you can use and move forward. And I just don't think breeding blue is a really good direction to go for anybody. Yeah.
Wow, this is interesting. Bluebirds have different shades of blues.
Mm-hmm.
Breeding dark blues to dark blues still make different shades of blue babies.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I guess it's also because you see that variation, you're seeing it's not only incomplete, but it's a polygenic trait too. Whenever you're dealing with multiple genes, obviously in blues you are, it's a dilution gene. And it's just best not to go there.
He hates talking about blues.
Yeah,
but I love blues. If I had time,
okay, go ahead.
I would raise those.
I'm all about purity of blood. I'm all about creating a family that's uniform, consistent, predictable, and repeatable. Okay, you can't get that with blue. I don't even like to go there. That's just something that I don't like playing the what if game or the speculation game or let's see what we get when we do this. And it seems like blues, that's exactly what you're what you're getting all the time, you know.
He is a type A personality when
No,
it comes to the
I'm
blues.
trying to teach breeding, and you can't. How am I teaching breeding when there's so many variables when it comes to that breed, if it is a breed or variety, you know?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
nice when they're right, but they're not right very often, and they're not very many of them.
You get lucky once in a while, right?
But you can't do anything with it.
Yeah. You can just sit and look in your yard and say, "Oh, they're so pretty." Okay,
Yeah.
I'm being ridiculous. All right, Ralph is asking, can I use your breeding system with racing pigeons? We select based on results.
It's yes, and I know that, but I'm the kind of person, whether it's chickens, gamefowl, dogs, pigeons, it's to me it's still about the complete package. Yes, you want the ones that are the best, but here's my problem with that when it comes to racing. Most of the ones that are winning are hybrids. They're crosses. They're outcrossed. They've got other bloodlines, outside blood in them. So what you're seeing isn't really a true representation of their genome, of what they're going to express down the road. You only get that predictability when you're breeding within the family over many generations, like we do at the Founders Program. So whenever you outcross, yes, you're going to produce really exceptional offspring that are great racers, but they can't reproduce themselves, and it's not repeatable. It's temporary. Hybrid vigor, no matter what breed or animal it is, works the same. Heterosis is a very temporary factor. It's a awesome factor of nature, I guess you could say, but it's just temporary. The only way to get what you want there and keep it and have it last for many years is to start breeding within the family your fastest birds. Okay. And then over many generations, by selecting the fastest birds from that, little by little, they'll get faster. Okay. And better. All the traits that you guys look for in homing pigeons will get better through selection within the family over many generations. Anytime you add new blood, which is a very popular practice for you guys, you just start it completely over. It's very temporary, and it's not passed to the next generation. It just isn't. Okay. So what you see, so the idea of breeding to winners, they have to keep doing that. They have to keep adding new blood because it is temporary. So the only way, and this is where patience and willing to play the long game pays off. So I'm a complete package kind of guy. So if I have pigeons too, by the way, and just through natural selection, those things out there are fast.
Yeah, they
They're
are.
outrunning. It's to the point now. I mean, there was a point years ago where I could let them out, and say I'm getting too many, and I would just let them out, and I wouldn't close them in for weeks. And Mother Nature would knock the numbers down. The hawks would get the slow ones. They're to the point now where it's hard to weed them down to my manageable number because they're outrunning the hawks. They're smarter than the hawks. They see the hawks coming. It's so funny. But I'm letting Mother Nature do it for me. Can I do it? Yeah, by putting them in races, staying within the family. The ones that are showing that they're the fastest and the best in that particular trait, you breed them within the family, and little by little, you'll get there. It's the problem is most people aren't patient enough to do that. They're not willing to play the long game. They get impatient. They don't see it working fast enough for them. And so they go to someone who's winning and they get a bird from them, and they hope that improves their line, which isn't a line at all, really, when you think about it. And everything they're seeing is very temporary. I was trying to go someplace with that. Yeah, and then healthcare, the complete package is the conformation and type. A lot of people think that pigeons all look the same. No, they have a conformation and type, and a good breeder can see that. Okay, the weight, the size, the color in some cases, although colors last. Then you got the health and vigor. Those are all things you want to look at, and then the performance ability of those birds, and then from their offspring. You're picking the fastest ones. The only thing I would say, because of the low number of birds that you get the offspring you get from each pairing, you don't get very many, although they kind of breed like rats, but you only get like two, a male and female from each one of them. And it just, I can get maybe, I think I can get about 4 breedings out of mine a year. So out of all of them, they do multiply pretty fast. But I usually tell pigeon breeders they have more than one line, because that way you have a bigger selection, and you're not just selecting the offspring, you're actually selecting the parents too. So some parents are going to produce better than others. You keep those, produce as many offspring you can, separate them into different lines, and you just keep doing that until you find the fastest ones. And in time, you'll get there. You just got to be patient.
Okay, sounds good. So Sunny is asking, does breeding extreme opposite traits produce more of both mostly, or can it produce some perfect medium ones?
Rarely.
Let's take Station. That would probably be a good one to, as an example.
Crooked breastbone. My mind's going blank. Squirrel tail, Station, which is the length of leg, length of back. Anything that you see in the type and conformation are polygenic traits, multi-gene traits. Okay, multi-gene traits, polygenic traits are you see a lot of variation. So it's quantitative. It means that we can measure we can look at the whole group of them, measure that particular trait, and by selecting to the highest intensity, we can get there. Now, what happens when you breed to extremes, and tail, like a squirrel tail would be a good one, or Station, where you have a really high birds and you got really low birds, and the highs are too high and the lows are too low, and you think by selecting the high and bringing it to a low, you get something in the middle. Well, polygenic traits don't work like that. Okay, we're talking about variation. We're talking about I'm trying to explain this in a way that it's simple. If you breed, let me put it this way: if you breed to two extremes, you're going to get offspring showing both the extremes. A lot of times, like a high tail versus a low tail, you're not going to get something in the middle. You're going to get both, because they're basically traits. If you look at a gamecock, like an American game, who has a really nice high full tail, then you look at like an asil who has a low smaller tail. Those are breed characteristics. Okay, and a lot of times we get both those tails because both those breeds are within our bloodlines. Okay, so the only way to improve those kind of traits, whether it's crooked breastbone, squirrel tail, low tail, high or low Station, is by selecting the birds in your family or on your farm that are the closest to being right. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to be as close to being right. Those are the ones you breed, and a little bit, and over time, little at a time, you'll get there. So if I have one that's a little squirrel tail and one that just drops it just barely below the 45, and I know that's not right, but that's all I have, the other ones are way too high and the other ones are way too low, I'm going to breed the ones that are the best. And in each generation, I'm going to look at the offspring that are getting me closer and closer to that ideal and just keep breeding those. That's how polygenic traits are form and function traits. So production, performance, type, conformation, carriage, Station, temperament, broodiness, anything that's form and function are measurable traits. Polygenic, multi-gene traits, they're quantitative. And we can see that by taking all the birds we have, write down where they're at, looking at them on a graph, like a population distribution graph, and we can see this bell-shaped curve. And the idea is to get them to a point where they're all really good, so that the graph goes like this and then it goes up, but it's all on one side. If we have that peak way over to the other side where we don't want them, then we know we're not doing good. If it's in the middle, then we know that we've got a handful that are really bad, we got a handful that are really good, and in the middle they're all over the place. Does that explain it okay?
Yeah, it's not a one and done fix all.
No, it takes time. It's going to take many generations to get there. That's the cool thing about quantitative polygenic traits, multi-gene traits, is when you see a fault, it's not when you normally cull, especially when it's the only bird you have. You don't have to cull it. You just have to work with them and slowly get them there. Monogenic traits, dominant recessive, mainly recessive. It's either I select towards it or I select away from it. I'm either breeding to it or I'm culling it. It's simple, but not polygenic traits are more complicated, but it's good because I don't have, if that's all I have, I don't have to cull them. I can start from there. It just takes time. So there's a plus and a minus to polygenic traits, which I like actually.
So I've got an easy one for you. And it's funny. Kenny and I were talking about this situation here a couple days ago because he was okay. Here, I'm going to tell you a story here. He was telling me, okay, this is what I need you to do. I need you to help me edit because
Yeah.
I need help in editing all these shows. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But wouldn't it be great if we had inside the Breeders Academy a page that tells you the hen to rooster ratio? And I named off a few other things, which I won't say here because you're going to go, yeah, do that. And I'm going to be going, wait a minute, I've got too much to do. But so Joshua was asking, what is the best ratio for a breeding pen? 8 hens to 1 cock or more hens?
Depends on the breed. Some like American Game and Leghorns, lighter breeds, I can put quite a few with a hen. I can put 15 or per rooster. I can put 15 or 20 hens in there. I just got to keep an eye on him, making sure he's not favoring some over others. Okay. But he's capable of fertilizing all of them. Then I've got heavier breeds, like the bigger breeds like Brahmas and Cochins and maybe even Asils. They're not able to fertilize as many hens, and it can be as many as 6 or 10 hens per cock. Okay, so it really depends. If you have like a light breed, like we just talked about, then you can put a lot of hens with them. If you are talking about a dual purpose type breed, 12, 15 hens you could probably get away with. And those bigger, heavier breeds, probably 6, maybe 10 at the most type of thing, so it really depends on the breed. But I'm not a big fan of group mating like that, or especially flock mating, because you're not breeding then. Group mating, it only has a purpose for multiplying birds or in a clan mating, spiral mating type system. Okay. When each clan has to have a certain amount of hens per cock, then that's okay. But in a proper breeding program, an improvement program like the Founders Program, no, you want to single mate them.
Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, Asils, for an example.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The hens don't hatch or don't lay that many eggs per year. So if you want to get the best out of them, I would single mate those.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
But it really depends on the breed of choice that you have as well. Because like I said, some lay less, some lay more eggs in a year. So
you're right. I would single mate them. But the other problem is because they lay so few eggs, I would do everything I can to keep those hens from going broody until the end of the year and put those eggs under other hens and get as many chicks as I can, because you just don't have the selection with that many chicks. You just don't.
That would be a very good idea for that breed.
Mm-hmm.
So basically know your breeds so that you can capitalize on them, the best that you can. All right. So Joshua was asking, how long should I study my flock before selecting my start?
What's he breeding? I'm just curious. You got to start from the beginning. You're going to learn your breed as you go. They say, how's it go? You learn your breed by, oh, my mind went blank. You basically learn your breed as you go. Okay. So you learn what you can on the internet. You learn what you can from books. You learn what you can by raising them, being with them, seeing what they do, talking to other breeders. You learn as you go. I wouldn't wait. I would just try to get the best bird you can, start from there, get the best offspring you can, and then keep moving forward. The offspring will tell you if you're going in the right direction. Yes, you do need to understand the breed. You need to understand what makes up the breed. You understand the genetic factors, especially if you're going to add new blood or add outside blood. You really need to understand it. So I would just keep moving forward. You're learning as you go.
Yeah, he breeds the black Americanas.
Okay,
So that's his
they're
breed of choice.
pretty simple breed. You can find a lot of information about those. They're a pretty simple breed actually. And the black, if you breed them, you breed blacks that are all black, and they're not expressing anything. That's easy. If you see any other color other than black popping out of them, then those are the ones you're culling. And eventually you'll get there.
So you were talking about not keeping them broody until the end of the season. How do you keep them from going broody?
Number of ways. Collect the eggs. Don't let them keep the eggs. Go in there and collect the eggs. If you have, and don't they go broody pretty quickly? So you can't wait, like A-sills we were talking about.
Yeah.
Those go broody pretty quickly. So you want to get in there often and get those eggs out of there. If they go broody, you need to move them away from their pen into another pen that doesn't have a box or something. Do everything you can to discourage them. And then once they start laying again, put them with the cock again, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Can I suggest something as well?
Sure.
Usually when a hen is going broody, her temperature goes up a bit. So if you dunk her, not totally immerse her in water, but dunk the portion of her body in cooler water to break that temperature, that could help you as well. And I mean, you don't have to dunk her for half an hour or anything like that. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes to just try and break that temperature, that higher temperature that she's going through. That could help too.
I've never done that, but that's what I hear.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is try not to get on the wrong side of genetics. Okay. So, and if you understand the genetics, you're going to stay on track. If you're adding new blood and you're getting hidden recessives, lethals, or deleterious genes, you're going to get behind the genetics. You want to always stay ahead of the genetics. So adding new blood is always a big risk. So anything else?
So Spaghetti says that he breeds budgies.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Him and I were chatting back and forth on text or inside the website.
Yeah.
They're like, if I remember right, they're like, they look like parakeets, if I remember right.
Ooh.
I think so. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah, that kind of bird. So
we
get all kinds of breeders in there,
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool. Yeah. Is 16 young each year enough to select from?
It's like I say, I'm going to go back to when I say try to hatch as many as you can manage and afford, or in his case, as many as you can produce. And if that's your limit for any of those three reasons, that's your limit, and you do the best you can from there. It's the idea is the more young you can produce, the better selection you're going to have. If you can produce more, I suggest you produce more. If this is all you can do, you do the best you can with that. But the more you can produce, the better.
Parakeets is the American name for them. I didn't realize that they had a different name. So
yeah, they look like parakeets to me. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you learn something new every day. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
So Sunny is asking, would you say that Americanas have medium cull rate, not a high cull rate?
If they have a high cull rate, it's because the birds you got, the breeder you got the birds from wasn't a good breeder. He didn't know how to make a family out of them. He didn't get to the point when they were uniform, consistent, predictable, and repeatable. So if there's a high cull rate, and then maybe he wasn't selecting for defects and that kind of thing. So he wasn't breeding for the complete package either. So if she's thinking that the one she has a high cull rate, then that's what the cleanup process of the Founders Program is for, is to get them to that point when they're more predictable, more uniform, so that we can move them into the foundation stage with good birds. You never want to go into the foundation stage with birds that aren't worth, reproducing. That's the key. So if she's concerned with that, Americana, I mean, um, what's the other one? Americana and what's the other one? They're
Aricana?
Aricana. Wait a minute, Americana, isn't that a hybrid anyways? Or no, that is a breed now. They are actually in the standard. I'm getting them mixed up. What's the one that's a cross? I know they call them Easter eggers.
Easter
Isn't
eggers.
there another name for those? I hope it's
Okay,
not American.
Sue, what is it? Because Sue knows everything about the domestic breeds.
Yeah, no, but I think they are in the standard. So if there's a lot of variation and there's a lot of issues that make them, you've seen a lot of culls, is because they're just the breeders who had them before her weren't very good breeders. They didn't know what they were doing.
If Sonny, if you're wondering, I really want to raise a breed that I don't have to cull very much because I'm not really comfortable with culling. I'm wondering if that's what she's thinking.
Well,
You're always going to have to do some culling if
yeah,
you want to get your breed to where it needs to be.
Yeah, culling is part of the process. If you're going to be a breeder, you really got to accept the culling. It's just part of it. I know people try to get around it. I mean, you can give them away as pets to other people. Just don't breed them. That's the main thing. But I don't know if you want to keep a lot of extra birds just because you don't want to cull them either. So Americana or Easter egg are different spelling. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah,
But
don't raise them.
What's cool about the Easter eggers is you get lots of different color eggs in that. So that's kind of cool. And then it's kind of a letdown if you get an Easter egger that just lays a brown egg. It kind of sucks. Like, darn. But
that shows the variation that's in there. Absolutely.
There is a variation in that. So we have one more question here.
Okay, then we'll wrap it up after that.
Yes. So Christopher says, for squirrel tail, would it be easier to breed for a longer back versus the tail since the short back is what causes it? Is the time frame the same since both are polygenic traits?
Well, the short back is correlated with squirrel tail. Whenever we see a squirrel tail, we see a short back. Okay. I've never seen anybody talk about this until my mentor Tony showed it to me, and then I started really examining, checking it out, and going to my other mentors and working with them on it. And every time they had a squirrel tail, they had a short back. Now I know there's other people teaching it like it's common practice, but nobody was talking about this until Tony talked to me about it, and then I started sharing it. I'm just saying. I don't even know why I went there. Anyways, so short back is correlated with squirrel tail. So whenever we're trying to bring the tail down, let's say you have a lot of birds with squirrel tail, not only do we want to pick the birds that have the best tail, but picking birds with a little longer back is good because you never see a bird with squirrel tail with a long back. They always have a down tail. Okay. And you never see a long back, a short back tail or a short back bird with a down tail. So yeah, you kind of want to select for the angle of the tail and the back at the same time. You'll get there. If you understand that, you're going to make progress really quick. So don't think by selecting the shorter backs and you're selecting just for the tail that you're going to get there, because you won't. It's just like what will happen is you want a nice tight body, okay, and the tail seems to be right on the mark, okay. Then they get older, they get like 2 years old, and all of a sudden, poof, there goes the tail. You know what I mean? So yeah, select for a proper. You want a back that's broad, flat, and tapers nicely to the tail. You don't want a back that's too long or too short for its breed. So, and that affects the body. You don't want a round back. You want a flat back. You want a broad back, not a narrow back. Okay. You don't want a back that when it goes back, it doesn't taper. I've seen those too, where you feel it and it's like, it just doesn't taper properly right to the tail. It should taper really nice. And then sometimes they got that bony mass back there. It doesn't, you can feel it. Okay. Or having bones protruding through the back. It has to be nice and flat, broad. And the length of the back is important depending on the breed.
Where's your iron?
Oh yeah. This is what the old timers, they say it should be like broad and flat and tapering nicely to the tail like an iron. And this is an old-fashioned iron. This is the iron at the time they were talking about. This is back when they create the standard for that. So I found do I have a couple of these?
You have two of them, yeah.
You hear that?
Heavier than hell. I don't know how
but this is a
iron.
perfect example of what the back should be. Broad, flat, tapering. Yep. Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah, I keep it there just in case. Thanks, man. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect way to end the show.
Yeah. So anything you want to say before I wrap it up?
Do you want you may okay.
Hey, I didn't have to use my paper. Yay.
I did.
I saved the trees.
A lot. Yeah, I used it a lot.
Okay.
So here we go. I got to put this up because this is yay me. Anyway, we are unsure if we are having a show next week. We will let you know at some point in time. It's a little up in the air whether we will be able to have a show next week. We're going to be like super busy towards the end of the week with doing a project. So, but with that said, I hope you all have a great weekend and stay safe and be careful of the rain. Wear your slickers and don't take your umbrellas because you guys get thunderstorms out there. So forget the umbrella.
Yep.
But stay safe.
For those who are dealing with the thunderstorms, stay safe and dry. For those that are dealing with the heat, because the heat's starting to starting to make its way, stay cool. So we'll see you guys later.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, thanks.